Like, even though you're broke, you still have to like dress the person you want to become
Oh,
or
you heard that?
something?
Yeah, my mom always taught me that. Like, she'd say, you know, you might not have or be where you want to be yet, but you have to dress like you are already.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she raised me just because, like, we're poor, I didn't have much. You don't have to dress that way, you know?
Yeah, I
and
love
style
that.
doesn't cost money. It's like something within. My real birth name was Rachel.
Yeah.
And I always used to say, guys, call me Ray instead of Rach, because it sounds really annoying to me anyways. And so then one day some kid at school was like, oh yeah, Rainy instead of Ray. And I was like, oh, I might keep that. And he was totally annoying. He was trying to be annoying, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this. I would love to be in a musical or write one. That would be cool. Or like do the music for a musical. Some kind of involvement. My dad plays guitar and he was the only male in an all-female rock band.
Wow.
So that was cool, and he would do backing vocals too.
Hi, today I'm here with Rainy Milo.
Hey!
So you were born in, was it Norwood?
I'm from Southeast London. Wow! Oh my god, yeah, I was born in, well, I wasn't born in, but I grew up and lived in an area called North Junction in Southeast London. It's my ends.
Did your parents grow up there as well, or?
My mum actually grew up in Guyana in the Caribbean, but then she moved to London in when she was about 16, and she moved to Selhurst, which is basically like a mile away from South Norwood, which is where she now lives with me. So she's pretty much stayed in the same area her whole life.
Have you visited her family back there?
I have. I haven't been back in years, but I did. It's amazing. It's such like a very family-orientated culture over there.
Yeah.
I really love it, and the weather's amazing, of course.
Do you
think
think
the food?
Do you think that influences the person you are now?
Definitely. I feel like my mum just has this kind of like Caribbean sass and honesty about her, and I feel like my strict and really Christian upbringing came from like that Caribbean influence that everybody has, you know, like you're raised to be a really obedient child, and like you just be good and you don't give your parents any like you know.
And how about your dad?
My dad is English. He is from like the English countryside, a little town called Crowborough in Sussex. And he was into music too. So
oh really?
Both my mom and my dad kind of put me onto music.
Yeah. I knew they had like a really strong like musical sense, but did they do instruments as well?
My dad plays guitar and he was the only male in an all-female rock band.
Wow.
So that was cool, and he would do backing vocals too.
Yeah. What kind of music was it?
Like an indie rock vibe.
Oh wow, yeah. And what kind of music did your mom really love?
Well, like reggae, of course.
Yeah.
And her dad was a reggae DJ.
Yeah, didn't he want to remix some of your stuff?
Oh my god, literally, even just when he drove me to the airport to come out here, and he was like, oh please, do you want me to make a remix of something? And I'm like, if you ask me one more time, I'm gonna let him do it one day, because it actually will be fire. I don't know why I don't just let him do it.
How did he even get into it? Was he like really ahead of his time during that, doing all the reggae DJing?
I have no idea. I know that him and my grandma came to the UK in the 60s, like a lot of Caribbean people did. And he kind of hung out in this area that's like known for having a lot of Caribbean influence. It's called Brixton in South London. So he would do DJ parties there and like do just dancehall parties, and that was his thing, and he's really good. He still does it up to now.
So he did it like full time throughout his whole career?
Yeah, he did,
Wow.
He did that, and he also was like a train conductor too. I know, the balance is really like light and dark.
And your mom, what did she do?
My mom is a seamstress. She's really good at sewing and making clothes, and so she does that for me sometimes.
That's where you got your whole style from.
Yeah, she's really out there. I used to be so embarrassed when she would pick me up from school sometimes, because I'd be like, oh please God, let it not be a crazy outfit, and it always was, of course, every time.
What was her style like?
Just really out there, avant-garde. And vintage, a lot of vintage inspiration too.
Oh wow. And I read in a previous interview, she was like, even though you're broke, you still have to like dress the person you want to become or something.
You heard that? Yeah, my mom always taught me that. Like she'd say, you know, you might not have or be where you want to be yet, but you have to dress like you are already.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she raised me just because like we're poor, I didn't have much, you don't have to dress that way, you know?
Yeah,
and
love
style
that.
doesn't cost money, it's like something within.
Yeah. Did you early on also read a lot of like magazines, or how did you develop the style that you have now?
I did. My mum is a bit of a hoarder when it comes to anything fashion, so she keeps all her own clothes, and she would also keep all of her old magazines, and so I would grow up looking at all like the old like 90s supermodels like Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell, of course, like all those 80s and 90s magazines. So I feel like that really influenced my style early
Yeah.
on.
Did you ever have any like identity problems being like mixed race? Because a lot of people I've interviewed, because I'm also like
Yeah.
half Chinese, half American, and they sometimes had like not bullying or like some other things like identity problems.
Do you know what? I never felt like I had that. And my dad, it's funny, when he was raising me, he always said, you know, you may feel like this one day and like you don't fit in certain places. And I was, oh, nah. But I suppose in some situations, which were always the wrong spaces for me anyways, you would feel like sometimes, you know, you're too black for one side or you're too white for another side. So definitely, but I also feel like with my friends in my area, I found like my place in the world, because everybody there,
yeah.
I grew up with my mum mainly, and so everybody in that area was Caribbean influenced, so it was like we both were going home to having the same cooked meal at night.
Yeah.
So I feel like I was lucky to be raised where I was.
Yeah. Well, what is it actually like growing up with just your mom and your brother, right?
My mom, my brother, and my sister.
Oh, sister
And then when
also.
she moved out, she moved to across the street. So it was like I was kind of annoying her all the time. It was nice. I mean, I suppose we're almost a bit too intense because we're really in each other's spaces a lot.
Yeah.
But also, like, when I'm out here, I miss them, you know? So
Yeah.
I need them, and I need that family environment.
Yeah. How about like a strong like father figure? Didn't he just like start being like your tour driver or something?
Yeah, my dad definitely was always really a strong influence on like making me listen to more than just R&B and reggae. He expanded me to beyond that I was getting at home at the time. And yeah, he became my tour bus driver because obviously he was in a band, so he has that experience.
Oh. How do you describe yourself back then growing up?
Oh, annoying!
Really?
I recently came across all these old VHS videos of me, and I was just like so annoying. You couldn't shut me up, and I had like all this confidence that I wish I just had like a fraction of now. Because I'm like, where did it
What
go?
happened?
I don't know. I think, do you know what? I was always really into musical theatre and musicals, and then when I started going to school, like you guys call it elementary school out here.
Yeah.
Other kids weren't really into that, so then that started to make me shy, because then I was like, oh, I'm different then. So it kind of crushed all the
I see
preschool
that.
confidence that I had,
Yeah.
that I'm now currently trying to regain. I was watching the videos like, I want to be 3.
What kind of subjects were you into back then? Were you a school kid?
Always the arts,
Yeah.
music, art class, and English too, which obviously, you know, is about
Yeah.
writing, which is what I do now.
At what age would you say you started like poetry and stuff?
Oh, I'd say really early on we did like a poetry class in like year 3. I feel like that's about 8 years old, and I was into it then. And then
that's
as I
really
got
young.
older, I only started to truly appreciate it at about 15, 16.
Yeah.
And I was like, do you know what? I realized that these poems I'm writing, I could mix with melodies, and that's
Yeah.
a song. And then that was just like...
Do you have any favorite poets back then or writers?
Oh, do you know what? I can't remember the name of the poet
Yeah.
of this one song. I mean, one poem.
Yeah.
But it's basically called In Paris With You, and it's kind of like a euphemism for every time they say I'm in Paris with you, they're trying to say I'm in love with you, but they're just saying like this is where we are right now. It's one of my favorites. I wish I could remember the poet's name right now.
Yeah. So your
And Benjamin Zephaniah, of course, too.
So your parents have always been supportive of your like music career really early on.
Yeah, I've been really
That's
blessed
so
to have
lucky,
parents
yeah.
that were so creative, so they didn't mind me being
Yeah.
about that. Because I've had a few friends that really wanted to be creative but suffered because their parents didn't see it as a real career.
And when you started writing your own poetry, it was like you tweeted it, right? What made you want to put on Twitter?
I didn't actually ever post any of the writing that I did until it finally became musical, when I put them to music, and I released that on YouTube and SoundCloud at 15 years old. I didn't think anybody was going to hear it, and then it just kind of blew up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember I was like sat in class at school a week after releasing my first track, About You, and I had like A&Rs emailing me, and I had to Google what an A&R even was, and I was like, who are these people and why do they keep signing off A&R at the bottom of the email? So that was funny.
Actually, with that, do you think it all came too easy, or did you not think that it would take that long?
Well, the first initial breakout, probably with the interest, was easy, and it's funny because my dad, who was in a band, he found it funny because it never really took off as far as he wanted it to, and he was always laughing. He was like, I could never get any of these labels to listen to me, and now they're calling me about my daughter, and he's like, I'm gonna mess them around.
And when you were 14, you were like performing with like a lot of local musicians, right?
Yeah.
Did you your parents were chill with that? I mean, 14's pretty young. Were they like older musicians or like people your age?
Well, they were people my age, but yeah, my mum definitely had a problem with it because it was a lot of males too. So she was always like worried about you hanging out with these guys and stuff. And I'm like, no, mum, it's cool. Like I'm like a bro, okay?
How do you think that shapes the music that you made now? Like that when you were 14 playing with those musicians?
I feel like that era was actually really necessary because that's kind of what birthed out you. I recorded that in a friend's bedroom. And they were who inspired me to put it out too, so I wouldn't even be talking to you without that period of my life.
Damn. So, did you ever put out anything as in your own name without like the Rainy Milo?
No, never. I feel like actually my social media presence actually begun with Rainy Milo anyways. I wasn't ever online before then. Yeah. And the story of your name is kind of interesting, right? Didn't someone like bully you and you had to like change it up? Yeah, it was so funny. So my real birth name was Rachel, and I always used to say, guys, call me Ray instead of Rach because it sounds really annoying to me anyways. And so then one day some kid at school was like, oh yeah, Rainy instead of Ray. And I was like, oh, I might keep that. And he was totally annoying. He was trying to be annoying, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep this. And it stuck.
How about the Milo?
The Milo part came from this children's TV show in the UK. It's called The Tweenies, and there's characters on there called Jake and Milo. And one of my friends, I would call him Jake, and he would call me Milo. Yeah. And so that's where that came from.
It's such a cool name.
Oh, thank you.
But you decided to hold off on a lot of like labels reaching out. Where do you think you got that like confidence from that you know there's like bigger things to come?
This is another thing that came from that era of being 14 and meeting other musicians, and they was like, no, you don't want to talk to labels because they'll put you in a 360, and I didn't even understand what that meant. So then I had this deep fear, like, no, I don't want to do it. But also, I'm obsessed with creative freedom, and I always had this image in my mind that I wouldn't have that if I was signed to a label. So I said to them, you know, like, this is too early. I just released one song. You guys don't even understand what I'm about yet. I'd appreciate it if you left me alone and let me do something, and then I'll come back and see you, which is what happened after I created Limey independently with my team.
Do you think that characteristic came from your parents, or where do you think you got that like maturity from?
Definitely, and I feel like my FU towards labels also came from my dad's experience too. So I always wanted to keep my music personal and to me. And the internet, I feel like, just gives people so much freedom now that I'm like, what do we really need them for? You know, before you needed them for that like distribution and to be seen, and it's like you can do that now on social media. Would you say that your dad kind of mentored you early on? Definitely, even like it wasn't a purposeful mentoring, but he definitely, his advice was always so spot on that he's become like a very necessary part of my creating now. Like once I've made something, I'll always send it to him, and he'll literally send me back like 3 paragraphs in a text just completely criticizing it. But
that's
it's always
amazing.
necessary.
I mean, I barely meet any, pretty much no one's parents can give them like musical advice.
I'm
and
really
he's super
lucky.
knowledgeable.
I mean, like out of the 3 paragraphs, I'll take about 3 sentences of the advice, but they're always really good pieces of advice.
Do you remember like what type of advice he told you? Like maybe on music related or?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I can't think of any. Like the most recent is kind of a very minute piece of advice, but I sent him a track that had a guitar on it, but it had like this really over the top effect, and he's like, you know what, Ray, I used to be really into all these wacky effects, but you'll regret that in a few years time when these like cool effects like wear thin. So he was like, just keep everything classic forever. You're going to be able to listen to this forever, and that was good advice.
What made you want to start your own imprint?
Creative freedom again, and just having my own thing, and the idea of like having an ultimate goal of being able to find other artists and sign them to that would be cool.
Do you ever find it difficult to have people take you seriously with even like, I mean, imprint stuff there, it's a lot of responsibility. I remember years ago I did this interview with this guy. He was a lot older, and he was like to me, oh, I heard that you like turned down all these labels earlier on. That's really like mature decision. So like your management told you to say that, right? Because it sounds good. And I was like, no, that really was like who I am. So it's definitely hard to get people to take you seriously sometimes, being like a young female and knowing what you want so much. And you also went to like a really famous like musical school, right?
Yeah, I went to the Brit School for Performing Arts, and it is the only performing arts school in the UK that was free. And so everybody there has to audition. Nobody pays. It's all based on like talent. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and like Adele and like
Adele, Amy Winehouse. Yeah, that's an incredible roster they have. Leona Lewis too. She's an amazing voice.
Was that something that you felt like you needed to do for your music career, was to go to school?
Oh, well, actually, that wasn't based on my musical career because, as I said earlier, I was always really into musical theatre, which is what I studied at that school. And then it wasn't until I was halfway through the course that I realised, actually, it's the music that's really inspiring me in musical theatre the most. And so that's what I really took to and carried on with.
Do you see yourself doing some sort of like acting as well?
I would love to be in a musical or write one. That would be cool. Or like do the music for a musical. Some kind of involvement.
What do you love so much about musicals?
Just because it's like a larger than life world, and a lot of the ones that are my favorites were shot in Technicolor, so the colors are just like beyond being realistic too. Yeah. And just the bursting into song, I don't know, I kind of like that dream world.
Yeah. And then you decided that you only did like 2 years or something before you went to like San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I left school at 16, and just basically my manager had grown up in San Francisco in the Bay Area, and she knew of a really cool studio with a lot of analog gear, and she said this would be perfect for your vibe, you should come check it out, and I've been going back ever since.
Yeah. What would you say have been your biggest struggles?
My biggest struggles? Finding new ways to say the same things in lyrics that have been said a million times before. Yeah. Yeah. I'm always trying to find like a new, fresh way of saying something.
Yeah. How do you think your sound has changed since you started putting out those early tracks?
It's funny because I used to always think that I was being so honest with myself on the tracks, but I still was like holding pieces back. Yeah. And I feel like I'm slowly over time, every time it's like peeling more and more of the orange, every record I make.
Yeah. How would you say you've grown as a person since those early days?
A lot, but I don't know how to describe it, but I know I feel different. I just know it.
Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Great, timeless lyrics. That's what I really pain myself over, so that would be amazing.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Bye.